Good evening. It is Monday, September 14th. This is the Guilford Board of Education regular meeting. Thank you for joining us. As a start of the meeting, I welcome you to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you again for joining us tonight. The first order of business is action on minutes. We will be taking action on minutes for 4 meetings that occurred in August. The first is a special meeting that occurred on August 3rd. Is there a motion to approve these minutes?
So moved.
So moved, Mrs. Sullivan. Second?
Second.
Second, thank you. Any comments or corrections to these minutes? I do have one correction if I could, or really just a further clarification. On page 1, about halfway through the paragraph that Dr. Freeman noted, there is a sentence, with the new flexibility being provided by the state, a revised reopening plan is now being proposed. I would like to add, after the state, introducing consideration of a hybrid model reopening at this time, so that it's clear what the state was suggesting at that point. I think otherwise it's unclear. And to the last sentence of that paragraph, according to this measurement, Guilford should plan, instead of on a full day reopening, to work towards a full day opening. Again, I think that just provides clarification of where we were in our decision making at that point, what the state guidance was at that point, and then makes clear why the next section talks about the hybrid model that we reopened with.
I agree. I think those are good changes. Thank you.
Any other comments or corrections? All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of these meeting minutes as corrected?
Aye.
Aye, aye, aye. Okay, it looks like I had 7 people. Is that correct? Okay. Second meeting minutes are our August 10th regular meeting. Is there a motion to accept these minutes?
So moved.
Mr. Galino. Oh, I got a first, Ms. Galino, Dr. Hirsch is second. Any comments or corrections to these minutes? Sorry, me again. I am going to suggest on page 3 under 8.2, the third sentence, discussion will focus on leadership in unsettled times, how to effectively provide for blended learning and issues of, I believe it is race and justice. I think peace and justice is also important, but I believe race is what we're focusing on.
Yeah, we tend to mention race, equity, and justice.
Right.
Yep.
Any other comments or corrections to these minutes? All right. All in favor? Aye, or hand raised here? Okay, thank you. Passed. The third set of meeting minutes is a special meeting minutes from August 17th. Is there a motion to approve these minutes?
So moved.
Dr. Hirsch, a second. Mr. Del Ventura, any comments or corrections on these minutes? Dr. Freeman, I did have a question that may or may not be a correction. On page 2, Regarding neck gaiters, the sentence is in the very middle of the page. With regard to neck gaiters, the district will follow the state recommendation at this time neck gaiters are acceptable. Is that an accurate statement?
That was accurate at the time.
Okay.
At this moment in time, it is no longer accurate. Neck gaiters are no longer approved by the state.
Okay, but this reflects what was discussed at that time. Okay, and
That
that's
is correct.
perhaps where I got confused because of that change.
Yep.
All right, any other comments or questions on these minutes? All right, there has been a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, I see all board members approving. The last meeting minutes we need to review tonight from Monday, August 31st, also a special meeting. These were several special meetings so that we could continue to discuss reopening. Is there a motion to accept these minutes? Mr. Sands, thank you. A second. Mrs. Peck, any comments or corrections to these minutes from the Monday, August 31st meeting? Okay, hearing none. Motion and seconded. All in favor of approving these minutes? I see. Okay, all board members are approving. Thank you very much. The next item is public forum for topics on the board agenda. Again, we will continue to ask the public to reach out to us via email, Dr. Freeman, myself, any of the board members. We continue to approach public comment in this way because the state continues to cap in-person meetings at 25 people. And so, and we have had meetings this summer that have had literally hundreds of people either in attendance or watching on YouTube. So we want to make sure we continue to make ourselves available to the public that way. Please reach out to us though with questions. I did get a couple of questions regarding reopening, and I will bring up those questions during that opening update. Number 5 on the agenda is review and approval of expenditures for the month of August. It was my turn to review, August financials. So I will report out that expenditures for the month of August were $3,411,397.06. Expenditures and encumbrances through the end of August were 13.42% of the budget as compared to 14.03% in the prior year. We reviewed the financial report and the warrants pretty thoroughly in our operations committee meeting, which happened just prior to this meeting. The one thing I will note for the public is we are now tracking in the financials expenses related to COVID impacts. So one of the things we noted in the warrants for the month of August is a deposit on the purchases of tents to be erected outside the schools for outdoor learning opportunities and outdoor space. We noted purchases of masks, of plexiglass desk and table dividers, of signage that is going up or has gone up, at the schools directing students in particular one-way directions in hallways, providing signage about social distancing and masks. We expect that those COVID expenses will also be including as we continue to track and go through our expenses and classify them as such. Will include bus monitors, will include other staffing, increased custodial staffing, again, all related to COVID. But again, we went through these financials in some depth in the operations committee meeting. So I am, in giving this report, making a motion to accept this report and ask for a second, please. Mr. Sands, thank you very much. Any further comments or questions from the board? All right, all in favor of approving the financial reports from August 2020, please raise your hand or say aye. I see all board members present. Dr. Hirsch? Okay. So Dr. Hirsch, I guess, is not available at this moment. So that's 6 in favor. All right. Let me get my stuff. The next item on our agenda. Sorry, I just lost my agenda here. Is communications. We can either mention some communications now, or we can, if they're related to the opening, provide Freeman's presentation.
I would think it would make more sense to sort of address some of those communications in conversation at the back end of the report on opening that we'll share with you.
Perfect. That sounds terrific. All right. The next item on the agenda is student representatives. We do not have them at this meeting. Dr. Freeman, will they be joining us in the October meeting, which they often do in a typical school year, or are we
Yes.
unclear about that? They will.
No,
be.
we expect your student reps to be with you for your October meeting, and I do want to just note for everybody that that would be typical. We rarely have students join us for the September meeting. They'll be on board. I saw Jerry this morning. I know that he's excited to be back. They'll be joining you in October.
Terrific. All right. So the next item on the agenda is the superintendent's report. So Dr. Freeman, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Balistraci. What I am going to do is share my screen here and pull up a presentation that we shared with faculty and staff members during convocations this year. And as I am doing that, I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Bowden, who is going to give you a quick update on staffing and introduce you to our new teachers. Can you guys see the slide presentation I've shared?
Yes.
Great. Okay, so Jason, and then I'll start this when you conclude your comments.
Sure. Thank you very much, Dr. Freeman. I'd just like to say that the summer has been like any other summer that we've had. It's been busy. We had a number of resignations, retirements, and leaves of absences over the course of the summer across the district in a number of positions. I'm happy to say as of this evening, we only have one open certified position to hire for, and that's at Adams, and in the process of interviewing there for an art teacher. We signed, or we're in the process of signing a speech and language person for LEAT this week. So we've come a long way over the past couple of weeks to fill these openings. We still have right now some openings related to health aides, lunch and recess aides, more so than lunch aides, some paraprofessional positions, a handful of building subs. But keep in mind with these positions that we doubled the amount of positions in each of the buildings. So we're slowly filling them, but we are. And at this point, we only have a handful of positions uncertified that we still need to hire for. I do want to thank the community for stepping up. We had a number of newsletter advertisements and advertisements out in local papers. And there were many community members that stepped up and answered the call to help us out in these areas. I'm deeply appreciative of that. And I know the principals are as well. As far as our certified hiring this summer, I know Dr. Crystal and Dr. Freeman will second this. We were very fortunate to hire a very, very talented group of teachers with a diverse amount of experience. We have some teachers that are coming on board and that this is their first year. We have others that are coming on board that have many years teaching in Connecticut and around New England. And I note that because obviously in this day and age, finding qualified, excellent, certified teachers is more difficult than ever because of the demand right now across the state. where all the school systems are looking for additional staff. So this now more than ever was a real challenge for us. And I can honestly say that I was super impressed spending time with them during new teacher orientation. And I'm really, really proud of and honored to present to you this evening our newest members of the teaching staff for Guilford Public Schools. So Dr. Freeman, do you have anything to add, or just want to run the program?
I'm just going to go ahead and run the tape. Except that, Kevin, I don't have sound on this and it's going way too fast.
You want to back out and I can try to run it from here?
I think if I take off my earpiece and switch to the computer sound, I'll get it.
Paul, do you want to note that this is just new staff to the district versus staff that we have moving to different buildings?
Yeah, so I'm going to try this again. I think I've corrected the audio position, but a couple notes on this. I want to note that this is faculty. So the folks you'll be introduced to here are certified teachers in administrative positions. And these are individuals who are new. In fact, they're individuals who were not introduced to you at this time last year. So some of these folks were hired across the course of last year. The majority of them were hired into this summer. It does not cover a significant number of transfers or reassignments within the district, but these are new individuals joining our team. And I'm going to start this again and see if you have sound at this time. Nope, Kevin, I still don't have sound.
Let me try running it from here, Paul.
Thank you. Go ahead and take over. This worked during rehearsal. I do apologize.
Diane Stober, Nadine Habas, Nitsa Haddad, Spanish
Kevin, it's still not working clearly.
physical, Kelly Taylor,
Are you not getting
speech
sound?
and language,
We're not getting complete sound, Kevin. It's going too fast and it's cutting off the full audio record.
Lindsay McNabb Renault,
I think this is as good as we're
Gina
gonna get. Sorry, Paul.
Santino Voigt,
I just downloaded it and it had 1 second.
Susanna
transitions.
Dameron, Jillian Bathrick, literacy, Julia Birch, technology teacher, Christina Smith, social, Rachel Allen, chorus teacher, Roger Blanco, Spanish teacher, Marie Boyce, French teacher, Jane Natalie, literacy, Dana Rizzo, science teacher, Mark Severino, Spanish, Lindsay Wargo, math, welcoming back Kevin, welcoming Julia Chen.
So I am going to apologize to the community for how we rushed through that. I'm going to apologize to those new teachers who are here with us tonight. That is not the way that we intended to introduce you. I do want to note for all who are watching that this video presentation in its entirety is on our website, and you can access it and listen to it in the way in which it has been designed by going to our website and taking a look for this information. I just want to, again, apologize for the incompleteness of that, but I also want to build on Mr. Bowden's comments. I got the opportunity to spend a little bit of time with some of these teachers during new teacher orientation. I had the opportunity to meet with most of them across the summer as we brought them on board, if not in person, at least through Zoom meetings. And I just want to say that I as well am very much impressed by this group of people who during this most unusual time have chosen to join our team here in the Guilford Public Schools. We're fortunate to have them as part of our team, and the students of Guilford are fortunate to have them as teachers. So I want to say to all of you, welcome. I cannot wait to start having these meetings in person again so that we don't have to struggle with this. And I'll talk about this struggle with technology a little bit more when I talk about our professional learning that we've engaged in over these last several days. But welcome to Guilford, and thank you to those of you who are able to join us here tonight.
I just want to echo that. Thank you as well. It is wonderful to see some of your faces. I normally would have been had the opportunity to speak to you at a convocation that and obviously we couldn't do it the way we usually do at the beginning of the year, but it is wonderful that some of you have joined us. I know some of you are probably at the other end of the YouTube live stream. We welcome you. We thank you for joining Guilford Public Schools. We are really proud of the school system we have here and the staff and teachers that every day come in and give our students their best. So thank you so much for joining us, and thank you certainly for joining us tonight. And as Dr. Freeman said, you are welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but it would be completely and utterly understandable if you felt the need to get off and prepare for tomorrow. I see Mrs. Sullivan clapping. Usually we also do a clap, right, for all of you for joining us. So thank you so much.
And I'm also sorry that we don't have cookies and cider for all of you tonight. It's usually a nice opportunity for board members to actually speak with teachers and meet all of you as individuals. Next year, I'm hoping that we can be together, and we will invite 2 years of new hires to the reception next year. So
that's a great idea. That's a great idea. Thank you. Yeah.
We're going to try this one more time then. Moving on, I'm going to continue to attack my report here out of order. What I'd like to do next is invite Dr. Crystal to share her screen. And as is traditional at our September meeting, Dr. Crystal is going to share with you a little bit of the summer learning that occurred here this summer, particularly the pathways that we launched and that we were so pleased with this summer. So Dr. Crystal, you want to jump right in there and see if you can do better?
Yeah, I'm not sure I can share my screen.
Kevin, does Dr. Crystal have the ability to share her screen?
I'm not seeing my screen showing up when I hit share screen, so.
Everybody's supposed to have the ability.
So just drop right down to the bottom. And Ian, do you see it on the bottom of your toolbar there?
Yeah, but when I open it, my screen is not showing for some reason.
If you cannot do that in just the next few seconds, then I'm just going to ask if you would talk about the opportunities that we had this summer without benefit of your slide deck.
Okay, let's see. It's saying it's giving me something about privacy. Let me try it one more time. Nope. Oh, there we go. Got it.
All right, we have your screen now.
Excellent. Perfect. There we go. Everybody can see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm just going to share a little bit of information with you briefly about what we did over the summer and how we adjusted the summer program this year. And we decided to run something called Summer Learning Pathways. And this was really in response to embracing the limitations that were imposed by this COVID pandemic. We were thinking, what could we do once schools ended up being closed and going full distance? Our regular summer program was going to be off the table because it was fully in person. And we were thinking about what could we do to be creative and to continue learning for our students, and to maybe work through some of the ideas that we've been talking about in professional learning that we've been doing. So we wanted to design something that was inquiry and project-based, and to look at some opportunities to explore backwards design and universal design for learning. Oops. So we offered 8 different pathways. These were the names of the pathways. Kindergarten and first graders had 2 pathways. Second and third graders had 2. Fourth and fifth, and sixth, 7th, and 8th graders. We did not do high school pathways at this point. And we tried to get these off the ground as quickly as we possibly could. And I'm going to show you a little bit about how we designed these. This is an example of the theme park pathway that was done for grades 4 and 5, we used a backwards design approach, meaning that we started with the end in mind. We looked at what were the desired results that we wanted children to come away with. And then we looked to, let me show you the second page, what is the evidence that we can gather that will convince us that they've achieved the main goal of the pathway. And then last, we designed the learning tasks. So this is different than what we normally have done historically with curriculum, because typically the teachers come up, or they understand from their resource a topic, and then they design the learning tasks, and they design the assessment and the outcome last. So this was a different way of looking at the curriculum, designing with the end in mind first, and then creating the learning tasks last. The other principle that we used was universal design for learning. And that was really, it comes from a group called CAST. It created by Dr. David Rose out of Harvard. And the whole philosophy behind universal design for learning is to design curriculum to not exclude anyone. No student, no matter what their readiness levels or whatever their learning needs might be, are excluded from these pathways. So we use these 3 domains of engagement, representation, and action and representation to design these pathways and ensure that kids could reach those end goals and achieve those outcomes regardless, and could take multiple routes towards those end goals. We also had to balance the synchronous and asynchronous experiences for students in the summer. So we tried to build in frequent opportunities for direct instruction in the form of mini lessons. We scheduled one-on-one conferences with students and small group opportunities, and we created these in a project-based format so that there was a clear outcome for students with integrated content. So we ran the program the full month of July, which is a week longer than our typical program. We ended up with 138 students in the 8 pathways. The average number was 17 per pathway. We hired 12 teachers. There were a few pathways that had 2 teachers working together on them, and that was primarily done because of the combination of literacy and math focus areas. And this summer program ended up costing us half the cost per student that last summer's program cost. So we had, last summer we had 4 teachers with about 29 students altogether. And so we were able to serve 138 students during the summer pathways this year. Some of the challenges that we are learning from are that very few students, but some had some issues with engaging on a daily basis and continuing to be involved with the work over time. We did have issues balancing the direct instruction and the independent work, and that is something that we're working out as we go, finding that right balance of direct instruction and independent asynchronous work. Some of the formative assessment opportunities were challenging at some points. The collaboration, which we've actually improved a lot over time, the ability of students to meet separately or in small groups and to collaborate with each other on a project. And then the issue of very young students, because interestingly, we had 23 entering kindergartners participate in these pathways. So parents were involved more with the younger students than they were with the older ones. These are some of the student reflections that we got. We did send out surveys to all our parents, students, and teachers after the pathways concluded. And these were just a sampling of the student reflections that we got. Most of our feedback was very, very positive from all stakeholders. These are just a few of the projects. This is an island project from the island pathway, the first one on the top. This is a tiny house that was built in our eco-friendly pathway. You can see one of the tree houses here on the right side. Somebody built a tree house in their backyard. And this was another one of the island projects. So they were very hands-on projects, and Some of the kids really dug deep and created some very useful things with their parents and around their house. These are some samples of the parent feedback that we got. After we got all the surveys back, we tabulated the number. One of the questions we asked was how many of you would do this again? And 91.5% of the parents that responded to our survey indicated that they would do this again with their students next summer. And so based on what we learned this summer, these are some of the things that we're planning to do in the future. We already did have a session where we shared the creation of the summer learning pathways and their design with our teachers in the district. We'd like to offer these again next summer, depending on what the situation is with the pandemic. We were thinking possibly these could be hybrid type of summer courses. We'd like to have some high school pathways designed, and we like to expand some of the choices, because one of the pieces of feedback we got from a couple of parents was that they would have liked other opportunities for pathways so that their kids could choose more areas of interest. And the other thing that we definitely would like to do is have teachers work through the process of the pathway design with us. Because of the short amount of time that we had this summer, we had the instructional coaches create these pathways, but now that we've had 12 teachers teach them and we've done a debrief with all the teachers in the system, we would love to have teachers involved in designing these and collaborating on these next summer. And that's pretty much a brief summary of what we did. It was an excellent experience for all of us.
Dr. Crystal, thank you. That was terrific.
Dr. Balistraci, I don't know if you wanted to pause there, if there were any questions for Dr. Crystal, and then I can go into my report on how this opening has gone over these last couple of weeks.
Absolutely. Are there comments or questions for Dr. Crystal based on her presentation? Dr. Crystal, I know in the past, we've used some of these, as you said, as lessons to move to either be used throughout the coming year. It also sounds like, though, there was a lot of learning that happened that really could enhance a summer offering in the future. And it's impressive that we were able to kind of serve that many more students as well. Do we see this as perhaps an opportunity in the future as well to really add to a summer program, even if we aren't in a pandemic type setting?
Yes, that would be my absolute hope, is that this could be expanded into something. It was very engaging for most of the students. I think if we increase the number of choices that students had, it would be even more engaging for a wide variety of students. And we were able to apply a lot of the principles that we've just begun to touch on in our professional learning over the course of the past couple of years. So the universal design for learning and the project-based learning, inquiry-based learning, those are things we've been talking a lot about, and we've been making small incremental shifts in our curriculum over time. So this was a great opportunity to start from the bottom and just create the whole thing in that format and really try it out and see how it worked. And it worked well.
That's great.
What were the teachers' reactions to this?
The teachers were very positive about doing this as well. And it was, some of it was a little bit new for people, and the people that jumped on board, we actually had more teachers apply to do this than we had positions for. So we did get a lot of interest, and the teachers that did do this came away saying that they learned a lot about themselves as teachers from going through this process. And one of the things that I heard over and over again when we debriefed was that the kids are so much more capable than we give them credit for many times, and that if we just step out of their way sometimes, they do these amazing things. I mean, some of the projects that I saw were just incredible. One student built a whole chicken coop in his backyard from the environmentally friendly spaces, and there were just some really neat things that were that came out of this.
So this seems like a win-win-win-win. I don't see a downside other than the fact that it must cost us something.
Yes.
But to bring the schools into a more informal setting, but allows for creativity and a sort of a different perspective that students see of their teachers and teachers see of their kids, just has to be a wonderful complement to what we're doing during the year. It's such a rich way of the community getting a better sense of what our own professionals do and watching their own kids in ways we don't do that during the year.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Yeah, one of our goals with the summer learning is always to try to use it as a laboratory for instruction as well as for a summer opportunity for students. This year, that was a slightly more forced experience. We had teachers who really sort of rolled up their sleeves and engaged with that digital learning experience in a way that we hadn't. They were able to take what they had struggled with through March, April, May, and June and address it over the summer, and it helps to inform what we'll be doing through this hybrid phase and for approximately 10% of our student population, even once we go to fully open. So it really did lend itself to that laboratory school opportunity this year. And again, with a much larger group of teachers to seed the rest of the teacher team. We weren't working with 2 or 3 or 4 teachers this summer. We worked with a dozen who came from different buildings around the district and really help us to seed some of this learning moving forward.
So in the spirit of our earlier conversations this year about equity, one worries that there may be either an explicit or implicit selection bias. The families and kids who choose to be able to do this versus those who might even benefit the most but are not getting access to it. How do we build into that issue going forward, ways of increasing accessibility to it?
We thought about that early on in the design, and we tried to balance space both for students who would be invited. And so at the end of those last 4 months of the school year, principals spoke with their teachers, and we had students who we thought this would benefit, and we reached out and proactively invited those students. And then that was balanced with an invitation to the entire community for anybody who would volunteer to choose. And so moving forward, we will continue to build on that model, right? We will seek out and encourage students who we think would benefit from the experience, but then we also hope to be able to offer it at large to the community for parents and kids who want to be part of this experience. But that's a good question and it's a good point, and I'm glad you asked it, so we got to answer it here for the community.
One last thing is there a possibility in the summers, if there might not be community members who themselves could run some of these things, would like to be teachers because they've got a specialty or an interest, and it would be just a wonderful short-term opportunity for us to augment our own staff?
It's an interesting question. Yes, it's something we could certainly think about. You know, again, the learning that we're doing through this forced experiment, the opportunities that this platform affords to us to allow people in Guilford who have an expertise to conduct an evening presentation or a short form course where they share that expertise with students who choose to be with them without having to be bussed, without having to do fingerprinting and background checking and all of their, yes, I think that there are things we're learning about these platforms that we can continue to employ moving forward. Absolutely. Well, with that, let me then start talking about the full opening. So Mr. Bowden and Dr. Crystal, thank you for helping with the report this evening. I do want to point out that the last time that we met with this board in public, the faculty and staff had been back for 1 day of professional learning. At this time, the faculty and staff have now completed 7 full days of professional learning and planning and preparation for our students. And today we have put behind us the 3rd hybrid day, the 3rd day of students coming into our schools, having students in the building. You know, the first thing that I want to highlight as I report out about this return to the schools this year, and importantly, is that our faculty and staff did in fact return. Mr. Bowden reported to you that right now we currently have 2 certified vacancies, and we're in the process of filling both of those this week. And although 2 weeks ago we had significant vacancies in the areas of aides and monitor positions, those are filling as well. The first thing that I want to do is I really want to recognize and appreciate the faculty and the staff, the adults who work in these buildings to serve the kids of Guilford, because through the groups of administrators, teachers, food service, custodial, clerical, para positions, our nurses, our various aides, crossing guards, hall monitors, maintenance workers, the adults in Guilford returned to the schools to service the children of Guilford. Many of those people were nervous. Many of those people were concerned about returning to these buildings after 6 months of having been away. But I want to applaud and thank the staff who came back. And they came back with enthusiasm. They worked significantly and diligently across those 7 days of professional learning. The days modeled much of what the students will be experiencing over these first 5 weeks of school. Some of the learning experiences were in person with social distance and masks, working in our spaces physically. Some of the experiences were completely virtual. We worked with an expert from Vermont on trauma-informed instruction, and that was one of the opportunities that got some of the greatest reviews that I heard from teachers. Simply teachers reaching out to say thank you for allowing us to spend half a day with him. He didn't just talk about trauma from the student perspective, but he talked about being aware and recognizing your own stress and your own anxiety levels as you enter into the school setting as a teacher and as an educator. And some of the situations that we engaged in were hybrid. There were a number of meetings that happened over the course of these several days where we might have had 40 or 50 adults in a room working together and another 40 or 50 adults who are participating from remote locations through a Zoom platform. We made mistakes. During one of the convocation meetings, I hung up on 14 staff members who were participating via Zoom while the rest of us were present in a room together. I redialed, I got the number, I got the link open, those people rejoined us, we apologized and chuckled and moved on. And those things are gonna happen in the learning experiences. I guarantee you there will be Zoom links that get dropped for the students who are participating from home, either in the hybrid model over these next several weeks, or for the 10% of students who choose to remain at home as we continue to move forward. But those were 7 engaging, valuable days. Please know that out of that time as well, teachers had time to work independently, setting up their classrooms and becoming more comfortable with the changed materials or PPE or technology that is available in their classrooms. And they had time to plan collaboratively. They had time to touch base with coaches. They had time to work with their PLCs and plan both for these orientation days that we're engaging in now, as well as plan for how we will roll out and begin working with our students as this year unfolds. And then last Thursday in pouring rain, we opened to our students. And our students came back. I am pleased to report that at this point, we've got approximately 10% of the student population that is opting for fully at home, and 90% of our students who are returning to this hybrid model. We had interesting arrivals. We had more parent drop-offs at all of our buildings than we've ever seen before. All of our buses ran, but they ran with very low density on the buses, and we were fine. We were pleased to see that. I need to tell you that the students have been fantastic. They're entering into buildings that have new informational and directional signage that is set up, and they're working really hard to follow and honor the one-way directions that are set all over the building. In some buildings, students have to take a very long walk to the left to get to the classroom that is immediately next to them on the right, but they're doing that to try to provide social distancing in the schools. I have to say that the kids have been absolutely fantastic about mask wearing. Even our youngest students, they seem to understand the importance of wearing the masks, and they're wearing the masks. They're doing it. They're helping everybody to feel more confident and more comfortable being in these schools. All of cohort B had their orientations last Thursday and Friday. and cohort A began returning to schools this morning. They had their first day of orientation today. They'll have their second day of in-person orientation tomorrow. On Wednesday of this week, we will begin rolling out the distance supports. So what that means is that after the orientation, we'll now begin the virtual component of this hybrid model. So far, students have only been doing the in-person portions of this hybrid model. The students in cohort A who came to school today were coming for their first day. And on Wednesday, we will now begin blending in these digital and virtual and distance supports. So that does not mean that on Wednesday, every child will have a full virtual day of school. They will not. It means that on Wednesday, teachers will begin reaching out and making those virtual contacts. So whether your child is in the hybrid model or whether your child is fully distance learning, those supports will begin. And again, this entire model has been a soft opening. Teachers will begin to blend those virtual supports into the day. I want to be clear that in Guilford, we are embracing a blended model. We will not be expecting on Wednesday or Thursday or Friday for any students to simply be turning on their computers at 7:30 in the morning and watching school until 2:20 in the afternoon. There will be a combination of what we did last year, of asynchronous, independent, project-based activity, to a degree, what Dr. Crystal was talking about in these pathways, but that will be supported this year differently than last year by a greater degree of synchronous real-time contact and by the opportunity to participate in the live streamed classrooms. The beauty of the hybrid model is that the students who are in on Monday or Tuesday will be with their teachers live streaming portions of those days or those classes out to the students who are not in school on those days. And so it will have elements that look familiar and feel familiar from last year. It will have other elements that are completely new. The live streaming from the classroom was not an option March, April, May, and June of last year. And it will be balanced for most of our students, for 90% of our students, by 2 days of full real-time in-person contact. Remember, it's important for the community to remember that even as we finish through this week, which is the last week of rollout, and even as we move into next week, which will be a full implementation of the hybrid model, Wednesdays district-wide remain a fully distanced day. On Wednesday, all students will be at home and they will have that blended contact, that blended palette of opportunities with their teachers. Obviously on Wednesday, there may be real-time connections with teachers, but there will be no live streaming from classroom instructions on Wednesday as all students will be home. And most importantly, remember that we continue to target October 19th as the date for our full opening. Again, these first 4 or 5 weeks are opportunities for us now with adults and students together into school to get comfortable with all of this. There will be learning that occurs in these first 4 or 5 weeks. Like me, there will be teachers who make technical mistakes and hang up on the Zoom portion of their classroom. We'll work through that. We'll get better at that. We will master that. Communications may not be full or complete or polished in the beginning of the year. I'm sure that there's going to be a situation where a student misses a scheduled live streaming because we failed to communicate it clearly. We will get better at that as well. We will master that as well. And as we get closer to that October 19th date, we will then shift all of our students back into school fully, and we will only be supporting that 10% of the population who's chosen for full at-home support. It's actually my hope that we may encourage more students to feel comfortable and confident coming to school, and it may in fact be a number smaller than 10% that we are supporting at home. All of that said, the system is also built so that should we need to retreat to distance learning, either for one small cohort of students because of a really isolated exposure or positive case of COVID in Guilford and that creeps into our schools, or whether it is because at a town or state or even regional level, we need to retreat to distance learning. I want everyone to recognize that this opening is an opportunity. Last year, distance learning came upon us unawares. The students went home on a Thursday and they didn't know that they would be in a distance format for the rest of the school year. Please know that part of this experience will be preparing students and practicing ourselves with the platforms and the technologies and the techniques that will help us to support students more effectively this year, should we need to retreat to that fully distance model. And so that is something that we are planning for as well. Again, you know, we're only 3 days in with students at this point, but what I can say is that the buses are running smoothly. There is more congestion and more traffic at all of our buildings at arrival and dismissal because of the parents who are transporting students. But people are being patient and good-natured, and the Guilford Police Department is helping us to smooth out any of the challenges with the congestion that's happening. In the buildings, teachers are positive, teachers are engaging the students. The students, I have to tell you, are simply happy to be back. They're bounding off of school buses and bouncing out of their parents' cars to get back into the schools. And we will continue to move forward in the positive way in which schools have opened. It is really, really nice after weekly board meetings since early June to be able to tell you that our staff came back and we were staffed to a degree that we did not have to collapse classrooms or raise class sizes. They're here and they're supporting the children of Guilford. And more importantly, it is really nice to be able to tell you that the kids are back. And you can tell that they're smiling behind their masks and they are adapting, and the schools feel safe and comfortable and joyful with kids in them once again. All of that being said, I want to add this one last note. A few times over the summer and in a couple of my communications, I have used the metaphor that I borrowed from a colleague about this year being like pruning a tree. We have made compromises to get to where we are today. Students are moving through schools with one-way directional materials, and they're walking past water fountains that are taped off and closed away from them because they can't use those water fountains. They're wearing masks, and while you can see their eyes smiling, there's a different feel to see students wearing masks in a school. At the elementary level, student movement in the buildings are restricted, and student socializing is restricted very much to a group of approximately 20 students. That goes all the way through the elementaries in Baldwin. At Adams, those social opportunities are restricted to groupings of about 80 students. At the high school, we have worked really hard since cohorting will not be an effective tool at the high school. We've worked really hard, and Principal Chaff has been able to bring class size averages at the high school down from approximately 25 to about an average of 20. I believe there's only 2 or 3 classes at the high school that will seat more than 20 students when they are full. But to achieve that class size, we have had to reduce some offerings in our catalog. We're not offering some very popular courses that have been offered in the past, and more students than ever before have been locked out of AP opportunities because of the benefit that we worked really hard to achieve around class size. Know that those class sizes were not achieved solely with student sacrifice. We have approved 2.2 new FTEs at the high school in the areas of world language and health and PE and English language arts in order to achieve those class sizes and not cut class offerings further. We have eliminated transportation to a really exciting program called Educational Center for the Arts, where our students participate with students from 30 other communities. And we've limited student participation in that opportunity to be digital only because of concerns about exposure and about violating the cohorts that we're trying to maintain. You know that we've talked about reducing evening opportunities. Concerts and theatrical opportunities in the evenings will be reduced in order to maintain safety. You know that we have reduced some club offerings and athletic offerings at the Adams level. And right now they're continues to be a really rich debate happening at the state level about whether or not Guilford or any school system will be able to offer a football experience to our students this year. The really positive opening that we've experienced over the last 3 days has not come without sacrifice, and it has not come without compromise. We make those compromises in order to be able to say that schools opened for the last 3 days in a way that felt comfortable, and students and teachers appeared to be confident, and the hallways felt joyful. So please know that we recognize the sacrifice and the compromises that have been made in order to get us here today. We will continue to respond to communications from parents and students who are disappointed about those sacrifices and looking for creative ways to work around those losses. But please know that it was all done in service of being able to be open. We're only open partially at this date. I hope that on the 19th we will open fully, and I hope that we will stay open from October 19th to June 17th fully. But please know that we also recognize the compromises and the sacrifices that were made to get us here, and we do not minimize those. Every principal and every central office administrator will continue to work with parents who are helping their students to navigate those losses and those compromises. And I think that does complete our report tonight, although we are happy to answer questions and engage in conversation.
All right. I imagine there are people who have some questions or comments. Mrs. Holman, go ahead.
I don't think we mentioned this yet. I had to walk away for a second, but I just wanted to just let everybody know in the public that Dr. Balistraci and I joined Dr. Freeman and Mr. Gurnham last week as part of the opening plan to tour some of the schools for their readiness and PPE and all sorts of things. And I will say that I was very impressed that we saw, elementary classrooms, middle school classrooms, high school classrooms. Having been doing this for 6 months in a healthcare setting, I would say we are on par with what's happening in a medical facility, and I was very impressed. So, stamp of approval.
Thank you. And thank you for mentioning that. I think I may have mentioned it in the operations committee, but I didn't mention it tonight. Thank you for remembering that.
Other comments or questions for Dr. Freeman? Dr. Freeman, I did get an email today with several questions on it. I think I'm going to ask a couple of them now that I know I'm pretty sure are not in the plan or things we've heard before, and then I will make sure to respond to this person with things I think we already know. This is someone from a parent who has a child who will be fully remote. So one of the questions is, when and how will textbooks, for example, math workbooks in the elementary grades, be distributed to students?
Yep. So any student who is at home and needs access to those materials, parents simply need to contact the building. The materials will be made available at the front office, and the parent will be able to come in and retrieve all of the materials that are needed. And then over the course of the school year, as some materials are completed and not needed any longer and new materials are made available, that will all be coordinated individually through the teacher in the front office at the school, and parents will just need to pick those materials up. Again, those contacts will begin on Wednesday of this week as teachers begin reaching out. And obviously, we'll make sure that the materials are made available before the students are expected to be working from those materials. It will probably be an active back and forth all year long. I doubt that any teacher will be so prepared as to be able to have a one-time pickup in September that will have everything that child will need access to across the school year. The parent should plan on needing to be at the school on various times, and we will make those pickups available in any way that makes the parent comfortable. I know that some of the schools are using the foyers as a place to drop off forgotten lunches or to pick up materials. It'll be done much like many of the local businesses are for parents who don't want to come in the school. They'll be able to pull up to the bus loop, call the office, and somebody will deliver the materials outside to them.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. Another question is about, will remote learners be interactive or will it be lecture style? Will remote learners see or interact with their classmates or simply be logging in to view a lesson? And I think we've learned from you over the summer that it will be a combination of those things, that there will certainly be opportunities for students to log on when the teacher is providing direct instruction, but there may be also opportunities for remote learners to be involved in some group activity if possible.
Exactly right. We're calling it blended learning specifically because it will be all of those things at different times. There will certainly be opportunities for live streamed participation where there's a class happening in real time and the teacher uses the technology that is available to broadcast the mini lesson, the overt teaching component, or the student dialogue component from the classroom out to the students who may be at home. We anticipate that there may be activities for students at home to participate in small groups, either with other students who are at home through breakout rooms in Zoom, or actually with students in real time in the classroom by using, again, these platforms. Now we're working out some of the technical difficulties like feedback. If you've got 15 students, well, if you've got 9 students in the classroom talking to 9 students at home on their computers and all of the speakers and microphones are on at the same time, we're working our way figuring out how to use headphones and how to have students spread out more so that we do that without creating cross noise or just feedback in the classroom. There will be some teachers who record the mini lessons or portions of the classroom activity, and students may be able to view those recorded portions asynchronously, very much in the way that Khan Academy works. And then there will certainly continue to be independent portions that will be done individually by students who are at home, either a project-based activity or more of a traditional pen and paper type activity that takes place. It should very much be a mix of all of those opportunities.
Thank you. 2 more questions, if I may, for this parent. The school district has asked that parents not make changes until marking period. What are those dates? I believe that's sometime in November is when the first marking period ends.
Yeah, I apologize. I'm not going to be able to pull those up off the top
That's
of my
fine.
head, and I don't want to pretend to.
Okay.
But and again, that is really just a suggestion and a guideline. The idea there is that we want to be really careful about students moving repeatedly back and forth from the in-person to the distance model, simply because of the logistics of it and because of the planning component. So the marking period has been suggested as a time frame that seems to be logical and makes sense. And the request is that parents consider this an important decision, and a decision that needs to be made as few times as possible so that the child doesn't go through multiple transitions back and forth, and so that the teachers can really have a handle on how many are home and how many are in the school with them and try to plan for that. I know that some other districts who opened earlier than we did are experiencing some challenge in that movement that's happening. It does get logistically difficult to try to balance that if it's happening in significant numbers.
Okay, terrific. And then the last question, I'm just going to read it. Are specials mandatory? There is a lot of there's already a lot of screen time and screen exhaustion. As fabulous as the teachers are, the specials do not translate well remotely. Can families submit their own learning plan to teach specials offline if they choose?
Yeah, so the first response is that yes, the specials are part of our core academic program, and they are as important as any of the other elements that we present. And at any grade level, at this point, we would anticipate that all students would participate in all of the required coursework. Now, I will qualify that by saying we recognize that some of the specials teachers struggled more than others because of the nature of their learning with the full platform, the full distance platform last year. We think that we're going to be approaching it somewhat differently this year. The live streaming opportunity with students in real time who are engaging in the activities, excuse me, may change some of that. And for any family that's experiencing a real challenge with maintaining the full course load, my suggestion would be that you contact your principal and you talk about that individually and specifically around your child. But from a district and a system perspective, all of our instruction is a required part of our instructional day and our instructional year. And no, teachers may not choose, or parents may not choose to provide some of our subjects independently and with a learning plan that they provide and only participate in some. It really is a full program that you're participating in, even from distance learning. I mentioned that we've got about 10% of our student population who has informed us at this moment that they'll be, and in the last number I saw was 315 students out of a student population of slightly over 3,100. So it really is almost exactly 10%. I also meant to note earlier for the board, and I just missed it. We have seen an increase in parents who have informed us of their intent to homeschool this year. We have 57 students at this count who will be homeschooling this year. That's a significant increase. 40 of those rather are new homeschool withdrawals that have occurred since the end of last year and the beginning of this school year. Now that's not unanticipated. Other districts around the state are seeing similar numbers compared to their size. But again, right, there's a number of parents a larger number of parents than we've seen historically who have chosen to homeschool their students. Our plan really offers the three phases. There's in-person schooling, which we hope to be in fully by October 19th. There's the hybrid model, which we will only be in from now until October 19th. And then parents do have the option for full distance learning, but it is the full program. Parents don't have the option to select distance learning in any kind of a la carte setting or to stay in a hybrid model once we shift to fully open on October 19th. There is some limit to the options that we're capable of supporting.
Terrific, thank you. I have Dr. Freeman, I just have a follow-up question. You noted a small increase in homeschooling. Based on a question I received from a parent within the last few weeks about considering not sending their youngster to kindergarten, I imagine that we may have a few parents who may have decided to wait on a kindergarten entrance. So one of the things I think we'll probably be doing over the spring and into the summer as we move forward is possibly seeing an increased number in kindergarten entries for those who may have delayed. I don't know if you have any sense of that, but I know at least of one parent who reached out because that was a desire to give their youngster another year.
Yeah, and I think that we may see a bubble in kindergarten enrollment next year because of students because of parents who had students who were sort of, they were old enough to begin if they wanted them to, but considering all of the circumstances around us, decided to delay one more year for kindergarten. I think that's a completely reasonable response. I would encourage parents who are thinking about starting a child mid-year to maybe reach out and talk to us before making that decision. Right, if there are kindergarten students who are being supported at home through the distance platform, that would be one thing. But I would encourage, if a parent is just thinking, well, I'll hold them home until January and then start them in January in kindergarten, I would encourage you to reach out to the schools and have a conversation about whether that makes sense or whether waiting all the way till next September would make more sense if that's the case. I don't know if I answered that clearly or if I made that more confusing.
No, I think that's fine. And I will, the last thing I'll say, and I will, this parent who reached out, I will make sure I respond to the couple of things that I think are in the school reopening plan. I just really encourage, and we've heard this from Dr. Freeman and the administration over the summer, but really encourage people as they participate in the remote learning piece of this to recognize that a lot was learned last spring. A lot of work has gone into planning this summer. I know we had some students who struggled with some of the remote learning in the spring. And as Dr. Freeman noted, for students and for teachers, this was a sudden change. Teachers had to immediately change their approach. Students had to immediately get used to being at home. There's been a lot learned since then. So I really hope that people approach this year really with an open mind and willing to engage, because a lot of work has been done based on what we learned, teachers learned, administrators learned last spring, to really make this coming year and those remote and hybrid options much more advanced or creative and with more time to really plan.
And the only thing I'd add to that is that, and there is yet more to learn.
Absolutely.
One of the most uplifting parts of last year was the understanding and patience and grace that was extended to us, the schools, from the parent community. And I would again just remind everybody watching tonight that we're going to need that again this year. We will be learning, we will be making mistakes, and we will be getting better this year as well. And so again, that was it. Again, I think it's one of the things that makes Guilford a special place. It was one of the brightest moments of the end of last school year. And I humbly remind the parent community that there will be moments of that, and there will be need for that understanding and patience and grace again as we begin this year.
Other comments, thoughts, questions on this opening update?
Really is nice to have kids back.
I did get, I got a wonderful email from a neighbor on Thursday afternoon who has 3 kids in 3 different schools in our district, who said they had an incredibly positive day, thanking the administration and Dr. Freeman for all the incredible work that had been done to make it a safe place to return to. Really exuberant. It was a wonderful email to get.
It's a really good descriptive word for this week. It has been exuberant around here.
That's great. All right, so I'm going to move on then to the board agenda. 9.1 is to act on personnel items. There are a number here. So first, we need to ratify the resignation for the purpose of retirement of a teacher, Margaret Malillo, Adams Middle School teacher in art, who has given 23 years of service to Guilford. Is there a motion to approve this resignation?
So moved.
So moved. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Del Ventura. Certainly an extension of thanks for 23 years of service. That's wonderful. And best of luck to Margaret Malillo. All in favor? Aye. All right. Please ratify the resignation of the following teachers. Heather Robinson, Cox Elementary School, 7 years of service. Lissa Dunn, Guilford High School, English, 4 years of service. Is there a motion to ratify this resignation? Mr. Sands, thank you. A second? Thank you, Mr. Galino. All in favor? Aye. All right. Please ratify the rescinding of the non-renewal of the following teacher. Dr. Freeman, could you quickly just explain that for us?
Yes, that's an awkward phraseology there, but this was a teacher who was non-renewed last year due to reductions in force. This had absolutely nothing to do with Ms. Cook's performance or teaching. We, if the board recalls, during the budget process before all of this COVID situation developed, we had eliminated 6 teaching positions. This was a reduction in force, and the teacher was non-renewed. As the summer unfolded and other teachers moved, we had the opportunity to recall this teacher. So she was offered the position on the recall list, and she was happy to return to Guilford Public Schools, and we are happy to have her back. And in fact, I will note that the position will be 0.8, not 0.6. So it's nearly a full-time position. In fact, it's an increase from the teaching hours that she had previously experienced here. We're happy to have Ms. Cook back. I know that Ms. Chaff couldn't be happier at the high school.
Wonderful. I just want to make sure we were approving the right thing.
Yep.
So we are approving the rescinding of the non-renewal for Elise Cook, Guilford High School, English. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Second, Mrs. Sullivan, all in favor? Aye. All right. And then lastly, please ratify the appointment of the following teachers. Roger Blanco, Guilford High School, Spanish. Marie Boyce, Guilford High School, French. Haley Schmalling, Jones Elementary School, speech language pathologist. Christina Smith, Adams Middle School, social studies. Lindsay Wargo, Guilford High School, mathematics. And Jamie Conklin, Guilford High School, physical education. Is there a motion to ratify the appointment of these teachers? Thank you, Mr. Sands. Mr. Del Ventura, second. All in favor? Aye. All right. Next, 9.2 is to act on a donation of KN95 masks valued at $4,500. Dr. Freeman, do you want to tell us anything about this?
This is a private citizen. It's a member of our Guilford community who is concerned about teachers in the schools and wants to make this very generous donation that we are very happy to accept. PPE is going to be a significant cost. It could be a significant logistical challenge not to let the cupboards get bare. And so we're happy to accept this donation.
That's wonderful. And so is there a motion to approve this donation?
So moved.
So thank you, Mr. Del Ventura, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Next is to act on a one-year extension of the food service contract. Either Dr. Freeman or Mr. Bowden.
I'll just start, but yeah, I mean, the board may recall that we spoke about this. We offered a simple one-year extension. The one-year extension includes a basic, simple 2% increase, and this will allow us then to essentially move existing health and medical benefits, all existing language, but with a simple 2% salary increase. It helps us in that it separates this bargaining unit from all of the others that negotiate on the same cycle. And considering the unpredictability of the times we're in, we very much appreciate the Local 217 moving this forward with us. Jason, any details that I failed to touch on? It's a pretty simple agreement.
No, you spoke to it well, and I just want to thank the union for negotiating with us, and it went rather smoothly.
Comments or questions from board members?
I'll just note that the increase here is in alignment with what other groups who went through complete negotiations received this year.
Anybody with any questions or concerns about this before we act on it? All right, is there a motion then to accept this one-year contract extension memorandum of agreement between the Guilford Board of Education and Unite Here Local 217 Food Service? Mr. Galino is making a motion. A second, please. Mrs. Sullivan, any further comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. And last, we're being asked to act on a recommendation from the policy committee. This is for new policy 1349, school symbol. A reminder for the public, this school symbol, I'm going to read just the first sentence here. School symbol means all mascots, nicknames, icons, and descriptors, including symbols, banners, flags, pennants, or similar identifiers. The board prohibits any use or reference to a race or ethnic group as a school symbol. The board recognizes the value of a school symbol to school spirit and morale. The decision to adopt or change a school symbol shall be made at the individual school level in conjunction with the school, community, and student body. This policy does not require any individual school to have a school symbol. So this is a new policy. Is there a motion to, again, sorry, we did receive this last month, which gives board members an opportunity to consider it, ask questions of the policy committee, et cetera. So is there a motion to approve this new policy?
So moved.
Great. Is there a second? Dr. Hirsch, a second. Any additional comments or questions about this? Okay, all in favor of accepting this new policy? Excellent. Okay, I see everyone's hands raised, so that is approved.
I want to thank the board for that. I think that's an important step moving forward. Thank you very much.
Terrific, and thank you to the policy committee. I know they spent some time, and I believe we also had some input from a former Board of Ed member, Gary Kazin, who is continues to be a valuable resource when we are looking for help in policy matters.
Very much so.
We are now on to reports of committees. We are heading into the fall after the summer when many of these committees do not meet, but I will just check in. Is the policy committee had a meeting in the last month that we should report on?
No, we haven't, but we have one scheduled for the end of the month. Dr. Freeman, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it's on Tuesday of the 29th instead of our regularly scheduled Mondays because of the holiday.
That sounds right. And we'll need to look at the list of policy adjustments we made for the closing of school last year and adjustments that may need to be made moving forward under the conditions of this year.
Right, we have three policies already on the agenda. One related to mask wearing. We're required to have a policy in that regard. We have one brought forward by Mrs. Trudeau that is required about procurement. That's on the agenda. And for some reason, I'm escaping what the third one is, but I know there's a third one that we'll discuss.
No, that'll be before your workshop meeting later this month on I believe you're right, Tuesday the 29th.
Tuesday the 29th. I believe Yom Kippur is on that Monday.
Right. The third policy is the new Title IX policy.
Oh, okay. Terrific. We did have an operations committee right before this meeting. Mr. Sands, do you have anything that you want to report on that we didn't discuss tonight at this meeting?
I would mention, Mr. Sands, if I may, that we did look at a possible bond request that may be coming forward at the November election date. That would be for needed improvements to the track and turf and carpet replacement at the original turf field at the high school. We had guests from the Standing Fields Committee, as this is a cooperative responsibility that the school shares with the town. But we'll continue to work with the town, and I'll remind the community that additionally there may be, or there will likely be, a bond request for heating, ventilation, and cooling system repairs, improvements that need to be made at lakes. Those were delayed from the April referendum due to COVID restrictions. They've been pushed forward, and we anticipate those coming forward in November, as well as the possible bond request. It would be approximately a $2 million bond request for the field and track improvements.
Wonderful, thank you. The Curriculum Instruction Assessment Committee?
This meeting is at the end of October.
Terrific. Liaisons to town committees, is there anything to report that is relevant to the Board of Education? I'm seeing people shake their heads no. Okay. And liaison to the Lynn Board of Directors, I don't know if they have met yet this month.
They did. They met last week. I actually was not able to attend the meeting, but they are open. They're opening 4 days a week. And the majority of their students at their primary center, the Learn Academy on Ocean Avenue in New London, are attending in person. They've got 67 kids going.
Terrific.
And if I could add, I just wanted to add that Learn has been exceptionally supportive through this summer of all of the partner districts and the superintendents as we've collaborated to share work across our reopening plans and then the logistics of moving to reopening. I also want to note that in September, Learn will be launching a sort of a summit group, a study group around equity. We will be working with Dr. Lee Title from Harvard. Guilford has worked with Lee before on equity concerns, and we'll be part of that group working cross-district to continue to address issues of race and equity and justice in our school system. That's not something that we're doing in an isolated way here in Guilford. We will be doing it in collaboration with other shoreline communities.
Terrific, thank you. All right, the last item on our agenda is public questions. Again, I will remind the public that they should always feel free to reach out by email. I will note that the Board of Education will be meeting next on September 29th, which is a Tuesday. We will not be holding as many special meetings as we did this summer. So for those of you who were used to joining us almost every Monday night, we certainly appreciate it. But we are aiming to have a hybrid meeting on September 29th, and certainly an agenda will alert the public to how they can join. By a hybrid meeting, I mean that some of the board and the administration are aiming to be in person at Guilford High School for that meeting. Some of our administration and members will still be remote, so we can accommodate both. Unfortunately, because of the continued cap on the number of people that can be together indoors, which is still at 25, we are going to continue to be have the public viewing us on YouTube instead of being able to invite you to join us in person. Believe me, I think I can speak for the rest of the board, but I will certainly speak for myself that I am eager for a time when we can see more people in person at our meetings. But we are working to arrange this meeting approach to make sure that, again, the public is able to view us in real time as we continue to do our work together. So please continue to reach out to us with questions if you have them, or concerns. If you are, now that we are actually in opening, you now have teachers and principals for direct questions related to what is happening at your individual school. So I certainly encourage you, if you have those types of questions, to reach out to those people rather than to Board of Ed members who will be then redirecting you to those people. Dr. Freeman, any last comments before we close this meeting tonight?
Good to have kids back.
Yeah. As Mrs. Sullivan noted, she and I toured some of the schools last week, got to see a few teachers walking around. They also appeared to be quite happy to be working in the building. So hopefully what we're seeing is just a great excitement over people being able to do school the way we are used to doing school, and in an in-person environment. Okay, so let's close. I want to thank the administrators who I see on this call, whose names I see on this call, who have been regular attendees all summer. And I want to thank them again for an extraordinary amount of work and energy and thoughtfulness that went into this reopening that started last Thursday. We are grateful for your expertise and your energy and your thoughtfulness on behalf of our students, and for some of us here on this call, our own children. So thank you again. With that, yes, and Mrs. Sullivan is clapping. Wonderful. I will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So
No one
moved.
wants to leave. Okay, Mrs. Sullivan, a second. Thank you, Mr. Delantura. All in favor? Aye. Good night, everyone. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you in a couple of weeks.